ඔෆිස් එකේදී විතරක් නෙවෙයි මම දැන් ගෙදරදීත් IDD calls ගන්න SLT phone එකේ.
ඔබේ නිවසේ SLT දුරකථනය දැන් IDD පහසුකම සහිතයි.
Making headlines on First at 9. The tax net. Public will have to fall in line with New England revenue legislation from tomorrow.
So we are going into a new uncharted territory. So there are many challenges that we have to face going forward.
Fight against smoking. A cabinet paper on cigarette sale restrictions to be tabled next week.
Now we are moving towards plain packaging for cigarettes, and legislation is on the way in prohibiting sale of single sticks.
Premier strife. No confidence motion against the Prime Minister continues to draw opinion.
Even though he managed to overcome the no confidence motion, the joint government will be in a definite crisis.
I do not see any constitutional impediment for the office of His Excellency the President in the performance of his executive powers that we have directly voted for and appointed just because a no confidence motion is brought upon a government.
Gaza violence. At least 16 Palestinians killed by Israeli security forces during Palestinian demonstrations. Full house. David Warner also breaks down in his public apology.
I'm resigned to the fact that that may never happen.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Katharina Chang. The wanted top story tonight. Minister of Health, Nutrition and Indigenous Medicine Dr. Rajitha Senaratne revealed today that the government hopes to bring in a law to ban the sale of cigarettes by sticks. The minister has long talked of the move and added that the cabinet paper to introduce the law will be tabled next week in hopes to impose the ban before World Health Day, which falls on the 7th of next month. The minister shed light on the matter at the SARC annual meeting on non-communicable diseases today.
The first South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation annual meeting on non-communicable diseases was held in Colombo today. It was held under the auspices of President Maithripala Sirisena.
In Sri Lanka, nearly 65% of the hospital deaths are due to major non-communicable diseases, of which nearly 17% occur prematurely. One of the key initiatives in NCD control is strengthening primary healthcare facilities in the country. The process, which has already started, is still being fine-tuned. Another area of NCD mitigation is our work on controlling tobacco and alcohol use. Now we are moving towards plain packaging for cigarettes, and legislation is on the way in prohibiting sale of single sticks.
Director of the SARC Secretariat, Rishfa Rashid, said that cooperation between SARC member states are pivotal to combat non-communicable diseases in the region.
The SARC constitutes a large population exceeding 1.5 billion, with some of the world's most populous countries. The South Asian region also hosts the largest number of people with NCDs. Therefore, collectively, the indicators are worst for this region as compared to the rest of the world. Premature mortality due to NCDs is increasing. Both morbidity and premature mortality due to NCDs have huge economic costs as well. Therefore, there is a need to further strengthen collaboration and cooperation between the member states of SARC to ensure good health and well-being of the people in this region.
The Secretary of the United National Freedom Front, Maitri Gunaratne, was arrested by the Kadugannawa police today during the protest march which commenced from Kandy, demanding the Prime Minister step down from the position. The arrest was the result of the discovery of 2 unlicensed firearms and 10 rounds of ammunition found in a vehicle belonging to him. Later, however, he was released on bail after being produced before court, where Gunaratne produced the licenses for the firearms.
The protest march organised by the United National Freedom Front began from the Gatambe Junction in Kandy. The march was organised demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. A jeep belonging to Secretary of the United National Freedom Front, Maitri Gunaratne, was checked by the police in the area of Iriyagama and they found a stash of clubs. The driver of the vehicle ID arrested over the findings and he is due to be produced before court. Maitri Gunaratne arrived in the area to look into the matter, and when his vehicle was searched by police in the area of Urupala in Pilimatalawa, they found 2 firearms and 10 rounds of ammunition. Since the license for the firearms was not forthcoming, police arrested Gunaratne and produced him before the Kandy magistrate, during which he produced the relevant licenses. The magistrate then ordered his release on bail. In such a backdrop, the protest march organised by the United National Freedom Front reached Mavanalla this evening. It is due to reach Colombo on the 4th of next month.
Executive Director of Cafe Kirti Tennakoon states that the President's move to take away the central bank from Prime Minister and place it under the Finance Ministry was an indication of no confidence shown towards the Premier. Meanwhile, various opinions were forthcoming on the no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe today.
When a government is being questioned for no confidence and if its ministers does not protect the government, they should leave. There is a group in SLFP willing to work with us. The General Secretaries of SLFP and UPFA will not sit in those media briefings. Parliamentarians of TNA will discuss the voting of the no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister, and we will arrive at a decision on the 2nd or the 3rd. Before that, the TNA have topics that should be discussed with the President and the Prime Minister. Ampara is a district that produced 4 parliamentarians, but we were rejected in that district. A minister with the sway of money was given 2 of our Pradesh Sabhas with the help of SLFP. Our supporters question us whether this is being done with the intention of destroying the Muslim Congress. We will not take an instant political decision. Instead, we will look for the long run and will take a decision calmly.
The SLFP is very well explained now that they are ready to pull out from the coalition government, so that naturally leads that after the no-confidence motion, there must be a new government with a new Prime Minister. If the Prime Minister cannot secure more than 113 members, even though he managed to overcome the no-confidence motion, the joint government will be in a definite crisis. As we saw that the President is very harsh on this treasury bond issue, he has taken off the central bank out from the Premier. So he has shown by acting like that he has no confidence at the moment with the Premier.
Now, just because His Excellency the President is a head of the cabinet, that does not mean that His Excellency's executive powers that we have directly voted for are placed in any peril because of a no-confidence motion on the government. Of course, the government now established by His Excellency the President will have to fall, because if there is no confidence in the government, the Constitution is very clear after the 19th Amendment. It is clear that where there is a Article 48(2), if a Parliament passes a vote of no confidence in the government, the Cabinet of Ministers shall stand dissolved. Once a Cabinet of Ministers stands dissolved, the Honourable Prime Minister must stand dissolved and step down. So once this vote of no confidence passes, His Excellency the President will then have to fall back on Article 44, where he must appoint as Prime Minister one who is most likely to command the confidence of Parliament. I do not see any constitutional impediment for the office of His Excellency the President in the performance of his executive powers that we have directly voted for and appointed, just because a no confidence motion is brought upon a government.
The new Inland Revenue Act will come into effect from tomorrow. A number of new features have been introduced to the taxation system of Sri Lanka, including the widening of activities qualifying for concession under export category, as well as amendments to the taxes of a wide range of fields.
The provisions of the new Inland Revenue Act, named 2017 number 24, will come into effect from tomorrow, bringing amendments to tax policies across various sectors. A significant change that comes under this Act is the taxation dependent on the level of income of employees. Accordingly, employees with a monthly salary of 100,000 rupees will be exempt from tax. Further down the line, a 4% tax will be levied on a monthly salary from 100,000 rupees to 150,000 rupees, while the tax between 150,000 rupees to 200,000 rupees will be 8%. Employees earning between 200,000 to 250,000 rupees will be levied a 12% tax, while a 16% tax will be levied to salaries between 250,000 to 300,000 rupees. Those earning between 300,000 to 350,000 rupees a month will be subjected to a 20% tax, and sums above that mark will be taxed 24%. Employee salaries, commissions, overtime pay, transport and other allowances, as well as various other similar payments come under the said tax. However, the Employees' Provident Fund and pensions are not included from these taxes. Under the new taxation system, a 5% tax will be imposed on the interest of the savings, including of those employed abroad. In addition, the profit generated from the sale of houses, land or vehicles will also be taxed. Tax on capital gains arising on investment assets has been reintroduced at 10%. However, the base value or the cost for determining capital gains is the market value of the asset as at 30th of September in 2017. However, if a house is sold following 3 or more years of residence immediately prior to the sale of the property, the profit gained will be exempt from taxation. According to the Inland Revenue Department, this tax is not related to selling shares for higher prices in the share market. In the meantime, the VAT imposed on various goods bought by foreigners will be returned to them at the airport when they leave the country with effect from the 1st of July. Moreover, as key changes done to the bill, activities qualifying for concession under export category have been widened, while incentives have been granted to business engaged in renewable energy. Additionally, investment incentives have been restricted to investments in new businesses, and incentives have also been provided in addition to depreciation allowances. Furthermore, incentives have been provided to investments in state-owned businesses. According to the new Act, income accruing to an individual on services provided and utilised outside Sri Lanka would not be taxable up to a maximum of 15 million rupees, while the withholding tax on the interest applicable to corporate has been reduced from 14% to 5%, with tax credit being now available on same. Furthermore, as principal features of the new Act, the capital allowance rates have been revised, while the enhanced depreciation has been afforded to investments in addition to depreciation allowance. Moreover, definition of dividend has been revised to include share purchases and capital reduction, while the rate of tax applicable to dividends and certain interest has been increased from 10% to 14%. Accordingly, tax rates are to be revised and a 3-year tax structure has been introduced, and the deemed dividend tax has been withdrawn. Under the new Act, permanent establishment concept has been introduced to ascertain the business income of a non-resident. Furthermore, the Department of Inland Revenue has been given enhanced powers to relook at transactions, especially those between associated persons. In the meantime, when First at 9 contacted tax consultant N.R. Gajendran to get his views on the Inland Revenue Act, due to come into effect tomorrow, he highlighted it as entering uncharted waters.
The new law, there were needs for some correction and improvements. Those things have not come into place. Even the Department of Inland Revenue has not given the guideline yet. Many stakeholders have suggested certain changes, amendments. I think even the policymakers may be accepting many of them, but they have still not given effect to that. The assurance or the thought is that they will be making those corrections and improvement that is required. So we are going into a new uncharted territory. So there are many challenges that we have to face going forward.
He went on to speak about the differences between the new Inland Revenue Act and the old one.
The fundamental differences between the two laws is that earlier is a principle-based law and new one is a rule-based law. The other thing is emissions have been taken away under the new law. Rates have been increased under the new law. All these things could have been done under the old law, but they have gone into a completely new law. It has been based on Derana. Certain modifications has been done to that law. Principles of taxation is different. Earlier we had many sources of income. We have 3 sources of income now. The whole purpose of the new law is to broad-base the tax and increase the revenue, but whether that desired goal, that is increasing the proportion of the income tax compared to the indirect tax, now it's less than 20% income tax compared to the indirect tax. They want to go up to 40%. Whether this law is a huge challenge.
In the meantime, former Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanayake too expressed views on the new tax reforms at a media briefing held in Colombo today.
අලුත් පාදු පන්තක් ගෙනව එක අවශ්‍ය රටට ඒක ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම මගේ මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශ කාලේ අපි පටන් ගත්ත දෙයක්. නමුත් එදා තිබ්බ එකයි අද වෙලා තියෙන එකයි සම්පූර්ණ වෙනස්. ඒක තමයි තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ. මොකද මේක ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදලේ අදහසක්. නමුත් අපි ශ්‍රී ලංකයන් වශයෙන් සුද්ධෝ කියන දේ එහෙම ගන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. ඒ අනවශ්‍ය දේවල් තමයි අද තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ. ගෙවල් වලට 115ක බදු ලැබෙනවා. බදු ගන්නවා. මේ වගේ කර්මාන්ත රටේ ශීඝ්‍රයෙන් සංවර්ධනය වෙන අවස්ථාවක 115 ගෙනලා දාන එක ඉතාමත් අමාරුයි. ඉතින් මේව තමයි අර ඉදිරි දැක්මක් නැතුව ඇති වෙලා තියෙන දේ.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
A positron emission tomography scan, also known as a PET scan machine, which was recently installed at the Apeksha Hospital in Mahargama, will be operational from tomorrow. The long-awaited PET scan was purchased with financial assistance received from the public through Manusat Derana, who joined hands with Apeksha Hospital to facilitate this humanitarian initiative. The inauguration ceremony will be held under the auspices of Minister of Health, Nutrition and Indigenous Medicine, Dr. Rajitha Senaratne, tomorrow morning.
On the 17th of March in 2016, Director of Apeksha Hospital, Dr. W.Y.K. Wilfred, approached Manusat Derana to request assistance to purchase a PET scan machine that is used to detect the early onset of cancer. The hospital says that this could increase the number of lives that could be saved due to early detection. The hospital, which had already collected 6 million rupees for the machine, needed to raise a total of 200 million rupees. It is in this backdrop that Manusat Derana decided to raise public awareness in a bid to raise donations from Sri Lanka and abroad. Placing his trust in Manusat Derana, businessman Thusit Muthumala donated 35 million rupees to the cause. Within 4 months, Manusat Derana was able to raise 240 million rupees in funds. However, due to the delay of the procurement process, Manusat Derana took measures to inform President Maithripala Sirisena to hasten the purchase of the PET scan. The PET scan is now installed at Apeksha Hospital and will be vested in public by the Minister of Health, Nutrition and Indigenous Medicine, Dr. Rajitha Senaratne, tomorrow. The minister commended this initiative by Manusat Derana at an event in Colombo today.
The PET scan machine will be vested in public at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow. Derana TV played a huge role in this initiative because they raised awareness, not taking into consideration the cost in doing so. As the Minister of Health, I wish to say that Derana has also assisted us in raising awareness in other health issues as well.
The success of this effort to make a PET scan machine available to the people lies with you, our viewers. We extend our heartfelt gratitude for the support rendered by you in making this initiative a reality.
Marine Conservation and Monitoring Unit of Sri Lanka Navy has introduced a new recycling process of polythene and plastic as a sustainable solution for garbage disposal of the country. This project consists of 3 phases and has its first phase of creating fancy items, flower pots, fence posts and interlocks for gardens has been successfully produced. In the second phase, it is expected to spread this technology all over the island and make the general public aware on proper disposal of garbage and how to use garbage as a resource. It has been planned to conduct experiments in identifying methods of disposing non-polythene and plastic garbage under the third phase of the project and to produce polythene and plastic recycling machine applying injection molding technology. In tragic incident, 4 people lost their lives when they drowned in River Ging in Hinuduma Gaul. The victims was a mother and her daughter as well as the daughter's friends. A 39-year-old mother, her daughter and 2 of her daughter's friends drowned in River Ging in Hinuduma Gaul at around 12:30 this afternoon. It is reported that the daughter was washed away in the current while bathing. In an attempt to save her, the mother and her 2 friends had jumped into the river to rescue her. According to our correspondent, the 4 individuals did not survive the incident. Commander of the Army, Lieutenant General Mahesh Senanayake says that April will be a month for hope as the military is taking measures to explore the possibility of releasing private lands to civilians in the Northern Province. He made this remark following a meeting with the Chief Minister of Northern Province, C.V. Vigneshwaran, recently. A meeting between Chief Minister of the Northern Province, C.V. Vigneshwaran, and the Commander of the Army, Lieutenant General Mahesh Senanayake, took place at the Chief Minister's office in Nallur, Jaffna this Thursday. Discussions were held on issues pertaining to the fishing community, the security situation in the province and the release of land.
Plus, meeting the Chief Minister is my obligation to discuss him about the security situations and for the well-being of our own people in Jaffna, and discuss about releasing of more lands, the capacity building of Jaffna Peninsula people, and I discussed with him regarding the ex-LTT cadres, what actions the Army could support them in future to uplift their living standards. Then I was talking to him regarding the fishermen issues. Fortunately, it's the Sri Lanka Navy and the Coastal Guard. They take good care of them at that particular moment. There were no major issues and fighting as such in the waters. That's a good sign. And the cooperation between the armed forces and the political leadership here had been improved, and we are very much working on that.
Do you have ideas on plans to release very soon?
Yes, that's why I said the month of April is the month for hope. So we believe that we will be able to do some justification of the people's claim. We are looking at private lands which we can shrink the armed forces and release more and more to comfort their grievances.
Meanwhile, 25 new houses were vested to families living in welfare centres in Jaffna under the second phase of the Nallinakkapuram housing complex project in the village of Nallinakkapuram in Jaffna. The recipients of the houses were provided with ownership documents yesterday. Each housing unit is built on a 20-perch land at the cost of 1 million rupees. The handing over ceremony was held under the auspices of District Secretary of Jaffna, Nagalingam Vidanayahan, and Army Commander Lieutenant General Mahesh Senanayake. Let's now take a look at other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
A Nepali national who had swallowed heroin capsules in an attempt to smuggle them into the country was arrested by officers of the Police Narcotic Bureau at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayake yesterday. The customs official have thus far retrieved 40 heroin-filled capsules weighing 350 grams from the abdomen of the Nepali national. The estimated value of the stash is approximately 4.5 million rupees. Padmalata Kumari, who is self-employed running a small bakery, has brought a three-wheeled motorbike through an easy payment scheme with the support of Department of Divineguma 2 years ago to develop her business. However, she complains that after a few months, the vehicle was in an unusable situation. As a result of spending a large sum of money on this vehicle, Padmalata has become extremely helpless. 8 suspects were arrested by police while transporting 40,000 kilograms of refuse tea in 2 lorries and a van destined to be exported. The arrests were made in the area of Hettipola.
According to the Department of Census and Statistics, inflation for the month of March, as measured by the change in the Colombo Consumer Price Index, slowed to 4.2% from 4.5% a month earlier. Meanwhile, the CCPI for all items for the month of March this year decreased by 0.5 index points or 0.41 percentage points compared to the month of February this year, for which the index was 121.9. A meeting of the International Maritime Organization in London next week will face demands for shipping to radically reduce its CO2 emissions. It is part of a battle to force the global shipping industry to play its part in tackling climate change. Recent statistics show that if the shipping does not take efforts to curb CO2 emissions, it could contribute to almost a fifth of the global total of CO2 by 2050. A group of nations led by Brazil, Saudi Arabia, India, Panama and Argentina is resisting CO2 targets for shipping. Their submissions to the meeting says capping ships' overall emissions would restrict world trade. It might also force goods onto less efficient forms of transport. This argument is dismissed by other countries which believe shipping could actually benefit from a shift towards cleaner technology. At least 16 Palestinians were killed and hundreds injured yesterday by Israeli security forces confronting one of the largest Palestinian demonstrations in recent years along the Israel-Gaza border. A senior United Nations official told the Security Council yesterday that the situation in Gaza might deteriorate in the coming days and called for civilians, particularly children, to not be targeted. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called for an independent investigation after Palestinian officials said 16 Palestinians were killed in clashes with Israeli soldiers yesterday. Thousands of Palestinians marched to the border at the start of a 6-week protest dubbed the Great March of Return. They were demanding that refugees be allowed to return to their homes in what is now Israel. Although most protesters stayed in the encampment, some groups of youth ignored organizers' calls to stay away from the fence and headed closer to Israeli positions. Clashes between Israeli forces and the protesters erupted soon afterwards, which have resulted in the deaths of 16 Palestinians and over 700 injured. Fears over the situation in Gaza deteriorating further are high as Palestinian protesters continue to stand their ground. US President Donald Trump's administration says it wants to start collecting the social media history of nearly everyone seeking a visa to enter the US. The proposal, which comes from the State Department, would require most visa applicants to give details of their Facebook and Twitter accounts. They would have to disclose all social media identities used in the past 5 years.
US President Donald Trump's administration wants to start collecting the social media history of nearly everyone seeking a visa to enter the US. The State Department's proposal would entail most visa applicants having to give their details of their Facebook and Twitter accounts while disclosing all social media identities used in the past 5 years. About 14.7 million people a year would be affected by the proposals. The information would be used to identify and vet those seeking both immigrant and non-immigrant visas. Applicants would also be asked for 5 years of their telephone numbers, email addresses and travel history. They would be required to say if they had ever been deported from a country or if any relative had been involved in terrorist activity.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
David Warner today apologized for his role in the Cape Town ball tampering scandal and says he is resigned to the fact that he may never play for Australia again after his 12-month ban. The former vice-captain struggled to fight back the tears as he read a prepared statement in which he said he had failed in his responsibilities as vice-captain. Describing his actions as inexcusable and deeply regrettable, Warner apologized to teammates, support staff, Australian and South African fans.
Since the ball tampering scandal broke out last Saturday, Cricket Australia stripped Steve Smith and David Warner of their captaincy and vice-captaincy and slapped them with a 12-month ban. The other catalyst in the saga, Cameron Bancroft, was given a 9-month ban, while he and Smith will not be given leadership roles for the next 2 years. 31-year-old Warner, however, was told he will not be considered for any leadership roles at all in the future. In the past week, Smith and Bancroft issued their public apologies on the ball tampering incident, leaving Warner to last. Warner was identified by a Cricket Australia investigation as the main instigator of the plan to scuff up the ball with sandpaper, and in a tearful media briefing today, Warner said he was resigned to the prospect of never playing cricket for Australia again.
I take full responsibility for my part in what happened, and I am deeply sorry for the consequences of what I was involved in. I failed in my responsibilities as vice-captain of the Australian cricket team. In the back of my mind, I suppose there is a tiny ray of hope that I may one day be given the privilege of playing for my country again, but I'm resigned to the fact that that may never happen.
Meanwhile, in South Africa, Australia's cricket team began the first day of the fourth test in Johannesburg yesterday by shaking hands with their South African opposition. New captain of Australia, Tim Paine, said that the move was to show sportsmanship and respect for the opposition.
We still want to keep a really competitive brand of cricket, but I think there's times we've got to be more respectful of our opposition. We've got to be more respectful of the game of cricket, and at times we've tended to push the boundaries as far as we possibly could, and I think that we've seen that people probably don't like that. So, you know, it's time for us to change. We're happy to do that. I think it actually suits this group of players. We're a different group of players than Australia have had for a long time. We haven't got too many guys that like to verbalise and have that sort of really hard-nosed Australian approach.
Sheila Fernando is at the other Derana Weather Centre with your forecast first evening edition.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Your temperatures for tomorrow will range between 21 and 32 degrees Celsius, with the lowest yet again expected in the Central Hills. Well, looking at the map, a low pressure zone will form from the south of the island and will gradually disappear. Well, for people in Batticaloa, Trincomalee and Kalmune, tomorrow will be much warmer due to continuous sunshine. But in the areas of Jaffna, Mana, Anuradhapura, Kandy, Colombo, Galle and Matara as well as Hambantota will experience showers and thunder showers. That's all we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
That's all we have for Mother Derana First at 9. But before we go, we'd like to take you to southwest China, where hundreds of thousands of tourists are attracted to the cherry blossom fields. While giving an arm for the local economy, the region has attracted around 200,000 tourists to the province. It also brings the tourists closer to nature to enjoy the pleasant experience of farming. Hope you enjoy these visuals. Have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.